Alrighty, yo, what is going on everybody? It's your boy Mr. DDG94 back with another reaction video. Today we're going to react to the part of the bloodline WWE fear. Without further ado, let's get right into it.
Oh, he's the Shove It Man!
Alright, Shove It Squad, who is ready for a punch to the gut? Today's video is one that I've been meaning to make for the last couple of years, and it feels like each week it becomes more and more relevant to do this. The Bloodline is the biggest storyline that the WWE has had for the last couple of years, and it was getting rave reviews. For those of you who hadn't been following the storyline, which I'm guessing from my fan base is quite a few of you, the Anoa'i family are basically dominating the show. This is Roman Reigns, Jey and Jimmy Uso, Solo Don't Look at His Ass Sikoa, Sami Zayn and Paul Heyman. Now make note of that family name, because this faction are related to wrestlers such as Umaga, Rikishi, Yokozuna and by extension, The Rock. Yep, they're a pretty big deal nowadays, and because of that, people have become obsessed with their family lineage. Roman Reigns has become accepted as the modern day face of the company, and the Usos are becoming more accepted as main characters, especially since their breakup. Solo Sikoa is still pretty new to the roster. He is the enforcer, and I like him. Honestly, I do. But as an enforcer, he just isn't believable. He's short, yet somehow he's barely 200 pounds, and he has yellow hair. We're supposed to be scared of this man. I happen to know someone who would have fitted the role way better.
He fits as an enforcer.
And what if I told you that this person was also a real member of the Anoa'i family? And he's not only better than Usos and Sikoa, but he also has far more potential. But for multiple reasons, this may be one that never happens. Let me introduce you to Jacob Fatu. He is 31 years old and he's the son of Tonka Kid, nephew of Rikishi and Umaga. He is at least 6 foot and at least 260 pounds. Wrestlers lie about this information all the time, so this is the worst case scenario. These stats are important because he actually looks intimidating and scary, and therefore he would not look out of place in TV land. He would make the Usos and Sikoa look silly stood next to him. Jacob has more of a traditional Samoan look to him, which isn't necessarily important, but it makes him more recognisable. I'm not just praising him for being a big man though. This guy can wrestle really well.
Yeah.
He's been doing it since 2012. He often talks about the
We've seen a couple of his highlights. He be out here.
Play on telly, and it all feels very strange. Why isn't he a part of it? What's gone wrong here? Okay, let's get into the life and career of Jacob Fatu. Things did not start out well for Jacob. He never really wanted to be a wrestler, unlike his other family members, and it seems like he had a troubled upbringing. At the age of 18, Jacob provides WWE with their very first reason not to hire him. Now, not that much is known about this, but Jacob Fatu served time in jail for armed robbery. This alone shouldn't stop WWE from signing him, as wrestlers like Booker T and MVP have also served time, but it does make Jacob Fatu less desirable. Interestingly, Umaga's son seems to have had a very similar start to his life. Whilst Jacob Fatu was in jail, he caught one of the early Uso matches in the WWE on his prison telly. This motivated him to turn his life around. People often make the mistake of saying that Jacob Fatu did time for domestic assault, which as far as I can tell is not true. Jacob Fatu was trained by his uncle Rikishi, and he started his career in 2012, wrestling for the Nox Pro promotion, which is a company run by Rikishi and Black Pearl. Throughout the next 5 years, he wrestled on the independents, often teaming with family members and being billed as the Samoan Dynasty. Throughout this time, Jacob somehow found the time to have 7 children. How anyone could afford that is pure insanity. Just one is almost enough to bankrupt you in the UK, but possibly it's a reason he hasn't gone further with his career. Over the next few years, Jacob Fatu had multiple WWE tryouts, but he was rejected multiple times. The reason for the rejections doesn't seem to be public, but sometimes WWE can be really weird. They rejected Alex Hammerstone, more on him later, because he looked too much like Triple H. Mind you, TNA also rejected him, saying he looked too much like Shane Douglas. It's strange, because you would expect both of these guys to be WWE targets just based solely on their looks.
Facts.
So there was nowhere good to go. It was 2019 and both guys signed with Major League Wrestling. And this is the time where I ask you all to head over to their YouTube page and subscribe, as they upload their full shows there. Whilst I don't think they're doing anything revolutionary, it's the best modern choice for an alienated wrestling fan.
Hey, yo!
Back to the story. Apparently, All Elite Wrestling came in with an offer for Fatu, but it was too late. He was already signed with MLW. Now, MLW might be an indie wrestling company, but they're pretty much the only one that uses exclusive multi-year contracts. It's actually very smart of Court Bauer, the owner, because as long as he's smart about it, he can lock down excellent talents with no way for WWE or AEW to pinch them. I'd do exactly the same thing in his position. And people are going to moan at me in the comments about these contracts. Nobody's forcing these wrestlers to sign these contracts. But at least Major League Wrestling has weekly television and pay-per-views, so this is a place that Jacob Fatu could improve his craft, and he did. Fatu debuted as part of a completely random faction consisting of Simon Gotch and Joseph Samuel. One of his first actions was to dive off a 20-foot cage. That's some way to introduce yourself. At this point, Fatu feels like a Samoan savage, a bit like Umaga. They are a faction that would be known as Contra Unit. They are global merchants of violence. He is being called the Black Sheep of the family. They almost start a riot after their first match. Very quickly though, he stops seeming like he's Umaga, as he shows that he can talk coherently. He sounds more like a street guy. And it also feels like Gotch isn't the main man, Fatu is. Not sure if they changed their minds, but Fatu seems to be the main guy in the faction. The Contra faction pretty much keeps attacking the roster, but an early highlight is at a Battle Riot, which is a bit like their Royal Rumble. A big pile of guys are stacked in the ring, and Fatu attempts a moonsault, which he misses. Well, I never said it was a good highlight, did I? But at least it shows that he has some athleticism. Contra try to burn these poor men instead. And then Fatu does manage to hit his moonsault. You just couldn't let that slide at that point. Not only is he known as the Black Sheep of the family, but he's also called the Samoan Werewolf, which is either an incredibly cool or an incredibly stupid sounding name, whichever way you look at it. Nobody is safe from Jacob Fatu and Contra. It seems like this referee really didn't want to go for a table, but someone that small just can't defend himself against the Samoan. We also learn that Fatu is capable of doing a backflip, which he was taught by Rikishi. It's just a lot of fun to watch a man this big killing guys in creative ways. Contra continue their attacks, and apparently they don't even have contracts with MLW. Despite that, Fatu earns himself a world title shot after only 5 months with the company. Fatu challenges for the belt, and he wins the biggest title in the company in his first match that is longer than 5 minutes against former MMA fighter Tom Lawler. It shows what's in store for MLW audiences as we get to see Fatu wrestle a Goliath style but still have some flashy and exciting moves. He wins the belt with a pop-up, Samoan drop and a moonsault. It's a massive achievement for Fatu winning the main goal, and it's props to MLW too for building him so effectively.
Yep.
That belt just looks so good on him as well. Fatu takes that even further with the title rematch, competing for 15 minutes and showing that he can indeed go the distance. Contra Unit also add a new man to their little group, and Fatu is the only Samoan guy in this faction, something you probably weren't expecting, especially considering his time on the Indies where he was often seen with family members. As the months went by, MLW were happy to run with Jacob Fatu as the main man on the show. He knocked off opponent after opponent as he remained undefeated. It's worth noting that none of the matches so far will be seen as incredible by the average internet fan, but you have to bear in mind that none of Fatu's opponents are seasoned veterans either. This is the Indies, and they're here to learn. To expect anything else is essentially an ROH.
It's a growing pain.
Now, despite that, he does just about enough each match to leave a lasting impression. Fatu's title reign unfortunately entered the Corona Crunch era, and the crowds all stayed behind in their mum's basements.
I can understand why they put him at the top so quickly, because clearly this guy has the star power. He can run a show. Like, I don't know why WWE ain't knocking down this guy's door right now. They should really be considering knocking down this guy's door right now, trying to figure something out to get him to get to WWE, because man, this dude got talent for real. I see why they pushed him to the moon, because a lot of these guys seem like development types. Like they've been doing good in the indie scenes, but now they on a more, I wouldn't say a bigger stage, but a stage where your talents really have to start showing. That hard work and dedication has to start showing. And clearly, he's more polished and clearly has the star power out of everyone.
The show was taken off the air, and this was blamed on Fatu and Contra. The show does eventually return, with Fatu now being held as the longest reigning MLW World Champion, despite the show not even being on air for 9 months. Now that's stupid. Eventually, Fatu would come up against what would be his biggest rival of his career. He just didn't know it yet. The man whose career has almost mirrored his the entire way. The man who also couldn't get into WWE for some unknown reason. The man whose name is still mentioned in the same sentence as his to this day. Alexander Hammerstone. Both guys have a belt coming into this match. This match really ups the ante for craziness, and it's Fatu's best match so far. He even busts out a springboard split-legged moonsault in this one, which is just scary to watch. The Coast to Coast was also scary. The ECW Arena appreciate this match. This is the first match that Fatu has been manhandled. He even has to resort to stealing Jeff Hardy's Swanton Bomb finishing mover, but even that doesn't get the job done now. When the moonsault through the table doesn't work either, you start to question what's happening, and yes, Hammerstone wins it. This ends Fatu's title reign and undefeated streak, 819 days.
Damn.
If you think about it, Fatu was kind of used to give Hammerstone legitimacy as a main eventer, which speaks volumes for Jacob Fatu. He literally helped create stars, he's not even been in the company for 2 years. Hammerstone not only took his belt, but he also ended Fatu's Contra faction in the following match. It feels like the end of Fatu in MLW, as he beats up everyone around the arena and throws a tantrum. It feels like the end, but it isn't. Fatu disappears from the show for a few months. He only shows up in pre-taped interview segments. This would be the start of a new character for Fatu. An alcoholic chain smoker. No, I'm kidding. But it's possibly a window into why WWE don't want to hire him. He certainly seems like someone who could have some inner demons. He cries in his interview but swears he's coming back for Hammerstone and his title. He gets distracted though and must have ADHD because his next feud was with Kruger, a man who was part of his former faction. Fatu was now officially a face for the first time in MLW. It's another one of those insane weapon matches. Fatu just doesn't disappoint in this kind of environment. Jacob Fatu is suplexed through a table from a ladder and he's beaten and pinned for interference. Their feud continues for months. It's more impressive television and the fans have firmly embraced him as their hero. In another match, like a complete dumbass, Fatu dives on top of barbed wire on top of Kruger. Proper mad lad. Fatu beats Kruger in the rematch with a Samoan splash off a ladder. And then he, electrocutes him. He takes his mask off and locks him in a box, bringing this lengthy feud to an end. It was time to get serious again for Fatu as he dominated and won the MLW Royal Rumble. He was back on track, going to retrieve his heavyweight title again. He's seen celebrating with Lance Anawahi and Juicy Finua, who's sort of adopted by their family. He calls them his bloodline, but they were known as the Samoan SWAT team, and he'd often be seen with them throughout his time in the company, but it was sporadic. Maybe he was embarrassed of them. Jacob Fatu also competed at Ric Flair's last match pay-per-view. He challenged Perk Alexander for the TNA World title but was unsuccessful. This was likely a lot of people's first exposure to Jacob Fatu, and he did a good job and he had the second best match of the show. It takes a very long time for Fatu to get his world title rematch with Hammerstone. We're now in 2023, and I know I keep saying this, but the match quality just keeps improving. Once again, it's his new best match. These two guys who nobody can comprehend are still in MLW clashed for the second time for the belt. Hammerstone shows that he has improved his in-ring stuff too. Hell, both of them are hitting inch-perfect moves. Ultimately, Fatu goes to the well once too often with his dives. Hammer suplexes him for a table and beats him with a nightmare pendulum. After all this build, Fatu has failed, but from a match quality perspective it was far from a fail. Instead, Fatu quickly catches the Openweight title, which is the second tier title in the company, and he celebrates by cutting a promo, swearing and going crazy. I have to question if it's stuff like this that makes WWE not want him at this point. I think they're scared of him, but at least MLW found something for him to do. It's not all positivity though, as in June of this year, Jacob Fatu added to the list of reasons for why WWE apparently hate him. He was scheduled to appear at a charity event in Wisconsin. Fatu originally confirmed he would be able to attend this event, but needed to be prepaid, including his flight. The charity were happy to do this and ended up prepaying about $2,600, only for Fatu to claim he couldn't attend due to a family problem. They tried to rearrange the event with him, only for Fatu to ghost them. This doesn't seem to have gone anywhere, and it's about 3 months since this news initially broke. Fatu really needs to sort that out, because that isn't going to just go away if he ignores it.
Facts.
Fatu continues to be booked on MLW, but he does lose his openweight title in the most recent MLW match to Ricky Shane Page. It feels like the shine has come off Fatu and he's fallen down the card. Jacob Fatu is set to be contracted to Major League Wrestling until late 2025, which feels like a lifetime away. I believe Jacob Fatu is at his best when he's booked as an unstoppable monster. It's a mistake to make him seem so human. He somehow feels smaller and less must-watch. You have to consider that maybe Jacob Fatu is just happy in MLW. He has said multiple times that he never intended to become a wrestler in the first place, so maybe he's happy about the drama that would come with the WWE and he wants to be of his massive family. That's going to be much easier to do without having to work a WWE schedule. Although, it certainly doesn't help his cause that he keeps saying how much he wishes he was part of the bloodline storyline in the WWE. It's not happening, Jacob. That ship has sailed. He just can't seem to stop himself talking though, with the latest this week talking about his love of MJF, who encouraged him with his promos and stopped him from being a wild Samoan. Instead, he told him to be himself and be a gangster, I guess. Now obviously, I don't know how true the scamming of the charity was. In this crazy world of wrestling, a lot of wrestlers have been effectively cancelled for less. So I expect that there's more to this one than meets the eye. I'm sure to Jacob Fatu, his career feels like it's trapped in a goldfish bowl. He's seeing all his family members become millionaires around him, whilst he can't do anything about it. And the messed up thing is that he's probably better than most of them. It would be easy to go stir crazy if you were Jacob Fatu. Essentially, I think that's the reason that WWE haven't signed him when they've had the chance. But enough beating around the brick. Here are the bullet points for why Jacob Fatu is still in MLW. Whilst he hasn't done anything that crazy, he has had a bit too much bad press, and he just comes across as being a guy that's too real. I think they'd be terrified of him. I also feel like he's been in MLW for too long and he's just stagnated there. He hasn't had good enough competition and he's got a bit bland and boring. It's not helping him. His choice to keep signing contracts has not helped him either. He's stuck there until 2025. This one is not his fault and it's out of his control, but there seems to be Samoans coming left, right and centre at the moment. It makes him less valuable. His life seems to be pretty busy and chaotic, and I'm not surprised. I mean, if I had 7 children, I wouldn't know if I was coming or going. And finally, I'm not sure what his priorities are. One week he's talking about wanting to be in the bloodline, the next minute he doesn't seem too bothered. What does this guy want? It feels like WWE and Booker T are grooming Umaaga's son to be the next family member to make the jump over to their company. And I bet seeing another family member jump in front of him in the line is killing him. Jacob Fatu definitely should be in the WWE. He's got the look, he's got the moves, he's got the presence, he's got the mic skills. Everything that you would need to be a star. Whether that will actually eventually happen leaves me doubting.
Honestly,
he's a big...
He's the type of guy you would have. He's the type of guy that you would have beat Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship, to be honest with you. He's that type of guy. That's the type of guy you need. If you wanted a guy to end Gunther's Intercontinental reign, this would be the guy you would go after to go get, realistically.
Fish in a small pond which leaves him shouting. The longer he's there, it gives WWE more reason to doubt him. And if you don't agree with that, I'll take your girl on an outing.
Alrighty, that's just gonna about do it for this one. I'll see y'all in the next video. Till then, peace out.